to modern society. This era has brought about some of the most influential changes in American history, with advancements in technology, medicine, and transportation. But for every good thing, there comes a little bad. In the case of modern society, we have discovered a remarkable tendency to redefine and usually distort pages worth of words. From literally to gay, words have a funny way of evolving in this age. Unfortunately, some words with meanings that have been taken out of context have lost their original significance. And in the case of at least one specific word, a redefinition has begun a dangerous dialogue in today's culture. In this generation, tolerance is a word that has been pushed on teenagers and young adults to the point of total confusion. We are taught that we must accept each other to such a degree that nothing is viewed as wrong. But is that really the case? I fear that the American people have taken the original definition of tolerance out of context so egregiously that it is distorted beyond recognition. In order to bring the idea of tolerance back to its original purpose, we must explore the notion that perhaps tolerance is not as balanced as it was intended to be. To do this, we'll first define tolerance, then look at situations in which tolerance was not respected, and finally, suggest ways to restore balance to the original concept. First, we must define tolerance, not only with its original definition, but also its new age connotation. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines tolerance as sympathy for beliefs or practices differing from or conflicting with one's own. Simply put, this means that tolerance is understanding, but not agreeing with someone else's convictions or beliefs. Unfortunately, today's approach to tolerance is something drastically different. It seems that everywhere we look, someone is being singled out and ridiculed for bigotry or hatred, when all they did was voice their opinion. This does not condone extremists who choose to vandalize property or cause harm to others in the name of their belief. These are not tolerant individuals because they have stepped beyond a simple voicing of opinion. But those who are only verbalizing their ideas are often punished in the court of public opinion for exercising their right to free speech. After the Supreme Court made the decision to legalize same-sex marriage in June 2015, the meaning of the word tolerance became even more inaccurate. To many, it now meant that all practices of the LGBTQ community were to be accepted and even praised, whereas those with more conservative convictions became the poster children of intolerance, and any disagreement with the LGBTQ people was a violation of their rights. But where were the cries of intolerance when two men were arrested outside of a California DMV for reading the Bible? Or when a professor demanded a student write the name Jesus Christ on a piece of paper and stomp on it? Aren't the rights of these people being violated? We all know that the Constitution protects the freedom to exercise religion, after all. It is clear that modern society has redefined tolerance to the point that it has become a one-sided affair, where the general populace decides what is right for everyone, and any opinion voiced outside of those parameters is automatically intolerant and, ironically, not tolerated. We have defined both the original and modern meanings of tolerance. Now, let's look at some situations in which tolerance was not respected. How about we start with the famous cake case? As reported by the New York Daily News, in January 2013, a bakery in Oregon refused to bake a cake for the wedding of a lesbian couple. When the lesbian couple filed a complaint with the Oregon Bureau of Labor and Industries, the bakery owners cited religious objections, but to no avail. The bakery ended up closing, and the owners are now facing a fine of $135,000. Let me ask you, in what way does this show tolerance for two differing opinions? Sure, the LGBTQ community cheered in victory, but how are religious rights protected in this scenario? What's more, according to the Oregon State Law Database, there are no anti-discriminatory laws in place stating that a private business cannot refuse service based on sexual orientation. Not only were these owners trying to protect their religious rights, they weren't even breaking any laws. These people lost their livelihood over a so-called violation of one group's rights in complete disregard to their own. Let's look at another example of one-sided tolerance. According to Western Journalism in January 2015, Arizona State University recently listed among its offered courses a class called U.S. Race Theory and the Problem of Whiteness. Did you hear that? Problem of whiteness? Now, imagine with me for a moment that what you heard instead was U.S. race theory and the problem of blackness. Did you react differently? You shouldn't have. After all, we as a society have reached a place where we can say that race goes no deeper than the color of one's skin. Haven't we? But you did react differently because tolerance says that you should react differently. We've been taught that to ridicule or in any way belittle the African American race is a heinous crime, and it is. But to literally teach that white people are a problem is somehow acceptable? Race has become just another topic in which today's version of tolerance is preached. Now that we have looked at some situations in which tolerance was not respected, it's time to suggest ways to restore balance to the original concept. We have to change the mindset from tolerance in the modern sense back to tolerance in the original sense. This means switching from you must respect and agree with the majority opinion, and if you don't, you're intolerant, to our opinions differ, but we can still respect each other as people. Greg Koukl, president of the foundational organization Stand to Reason, stated in 2013 in his article, The Intolerance of Tolerance, that the classical rule of tolerance is this: tolerate persons in all circumstances by according them respect and courtesy, even when their ideas are false or silly. In order to restore balance, there are two suggestions to consider. The first is quite simple. We each must choose what we believe is right and wrong. After doing so, we decide that if we come across someone whose right and wrong differs from our own, we will choose not to immediately judge them for it. The second suggestion is this: when attempting to tolerate someone with differing views, we should try to shift the focus from that which we disagree on to something to which we both can relate. Finding common ground with those we interact with could drastically change the way that we treat them, and in turn, are treated by them. President John F. Kennedy once said, "Tolerance implies no lack of commitment to one's own beliefs. Rather, it condemns the oppression and persecution of others." The concept of tolerance was originally created to not only protect your opinion, but also the opinions of those around you. We must both refrain from tolerance and find common ground if we hope to strike a balance in our view of tolerance today. This balance is imperative for Kennedy's opinion protection plan to thrive. We have explored the idea that tolerance is not balanced as it was intended to be, so that we could attempt to draw our society back to the original purpose of tolerance. We have defined the two meanings of the word. We have looked at situations in which tolerance was not respected, and we have suggested ways to restore balance to the original concept. Real tolerance does not mean you have to give up your beliefs. It simply means you have to allow others to have different ones. The blatant refusal to accept other ideas and convictions is harmful in our culture. It does not promote the peace and equality that modern society is trying to achieve. Imagine how the dialogue of this society would change if we were able to effectively redefine tolerance in the mindset of the population. How radically different would the culture be? How much more peacefully would we coexist as humans? It's time to bring an end to one-sided tolerance. It's time to bring balance to the misrepresentation of so important a concept. It's time for us to stop putting up with modern tolerance.